As you recall, we talked about the interference pattern of information, which is the hologram. Remember that every speck of matter on the surface of this torus is sending out information about itself. Our galaxy does, and so does a galaxy and many other galaxies which have gone ahead of us. So that the information that is being sent out gets interwoven into one web of information about the entire structure. This is the information that one can tap in those higher states of consciousness and in fact enter the knowledge that's available about the entire structure, because we are a part of this hologram, that little sliver that still retains some of that information, and by tuning into the totality of the hologram, we can have the information about every part of it, and that's exactly what Ben did.
What Myrtala is presenting here is one of the central pieces of Itzhak Bentov's thought, his vision of the universe as a hologram. In physical terms, a hologram is generated from a plate that contains the complete information of an image. When a beam of coherent light, such as a laser, strikes that plate, the encoded information is projected in 3 dimensions. But there is an even more unsettling characteristic. In a hologram, each fragment contains the entirety of the image. If you divide the plate, each part still displays the whole. The implications of this are astonishing. Because if the universe functions as a hologram, as various researchers and scientists have suggested in different contexts, then each part would contain the information of the whole. And that includes us, each cell, each neuron, each point of consciousness. Under this perspective, accessing altered states would not be escaping reality, but penetrating more deeply into its informational structure. Bentov maintained that, by entering certain states of resonance, consciousness could tune into that more fundamental level. He did not describe it as a mystical fantasy. He described it as a connection with the source of the projection. From there, according to his interpretation, it would not only be possible to intuit the vibrational composition of the universe, but to glimpse the very process of creation itself, even the very nature of God, as we will see later.
So, this would be the structure then. This is the core of the structure, which is called torus, T-O-R-U-S. Now, if we equate matter with consciousness, and as I said before, there is nothing but consciousness, and matter is only a form in which consciousness appears. This would be the core of that torus structure. The white hole through which energy emerges, condenses, becomes matter, goes around, gets pulled back into the black hole. And between them is what might be called the singularity point. In physics, it's a situation where laws no longer apply. And here, a transmutation occurs of matter that has condensed to an extreme, and it becomes energy again to re-emerge as a new universe. So here is our white hole and black hole and matter circulating round and around. In the center, it's hollow, and it's an electromagnetic field. And we could say that this interference pattern of information could be called the universal mind hologram. The torus is a distilling column of consciousness, that this structure actually is refining consciousness, which is equivalent to matter, as matter is recirculated through this black and white hole.
In this part of the presentation, Myrtala describes one of Itzhak Bentov's deepest intuitions, the vision of the universe as a dynamic toroid, a field closed in on itself, where at the center 2 complementary poles would coexist, a black hole and a white hole. For Bentov, this was not merely a symbolic image, it was a functional structure. He began from a very ancient idea, as above, so below. the notion that the macro and the micro reflect one another. Observing the subatomic models available in his time, he interpreted that even in fundamental particles, such as quarks, there appeared dynamics of emission, impulses, jets of energy projected in a particular direction. From his perspective, this dynamic was fractal. What happens at the microscopic scale could be reflected at the cosmic scale, and so he reinterpreted the Big Bang. Not as a single isolated event in the past, but as part of a continuous cycle. The great initial explosion would be, in this model, the manifestation of a white hole, the release of information and energy that had previously been absorbed by a black hole. A process of compression and expansion, of birth, development, and reabsorption, a cycle, matter emerging, organizing, evolving, and finally returning to the point of origin to begin the process again. For Bentov, the entire universe would function in this way, like an organism, like a cosmic breath. But there is something even more interesting. All of that cycle would be subject to time, and time, in his interpretation, would not be something absolute, but an internal property of the system, mass in motion within the toroid. In other words, time would be valid within the structure, but outside of it, the rules would change. Bentov spoke of a holographic universal mind, a broader level where this entire cycle would not be sequential, but simultaneous, where past, present, and future would not be separated, but contained within a single totality. From that external perspective, what we experience as a timeline would be only a section of the hologram. And outside that toroid, according to his interpretation, the limitations of time would be annulled. All information would be available, anywhere, at any moment. Accessing that level would not mean traveling physically. It would mean shifting the perceptual frame. And that, precisely, is what Bentov believed he had experienced. A momentary connection with that level where the entire cycle can be observed as a whole.